A couple of weeks ago, I met with an enterprising photographer, and he was asking me about some book recommendations, specifically books for how to improve as a kind of creative freelancer and just generally approaches for leading a creative life. And that got me thinking about some of the books that have made a really big impact on my work and career. And for me personally, I know maybe not a lot of people read as much as they used to, obviously, but for me, books are by far the best source of information, and especially kind of like long-term, old age wisdom type things. There's a lot of great old business books and just creative advice and more general books that I look to and that have really guided me throughout my life and career, and I want to share them with you. Now, we sent this as an email to our email subscribers a little bit ago, so if you got that, feel free to skip this video and move on to the next one. But if you haven't seen that, I highly recommend you subscribe to our email list. You can find it at workerbeesupply.com/freebies. And we send you fun things like free guides that we create. For example, we released our freelance review guide about how to review your freelance practice and set yourself up for growth in the new year. So you can find all of that at workerbeesupply.com/freebies. And I hope to see you. It's growing into a fun community. But without further ado, let's get into the books. Now, I've only selected 5 books that have really made a big impact for me. I sort of stole this video idea from Tim Ferriss, who has had the Books I Love series on his podcast over the last few weeks. So this is my version of the books I've loved, and I hope you would drop the books that have made a big impact for you down in the comments below. I'd love to fill up my reading list in the new year with your recommendations. So let's get to it. The first book I want to recommend is Stumbling on Happiness. Now, one of the things we need to do the most is plan into the future. We make a plan and then we sort of start executing a series of actions, and eventually, maybe a few months later, maybe a few years later, maybe a decade later, we get to this new reality that we sort of dreamed of. However, often when we get to this new reality, it's actually not what we want anymore. And the book Stumbling on Happiness really teaches you how to sort of like predict the future in your own world and how to decide what you should spend time on, what you should focus on, and what your future you will appreciate and enjoy, and the kind of life your future you will want to live, not your present you necessarily. I still use the things I learned in this book to guide my life every day, and I highly, highly recommend you check it out. It's a bit more on the kind of like philosophical psychology side of things than maybe some of the other books, but honestly, it was like a game changer when I read it, and it's been with me ever since. So check it out. That's Stumbling on Happiness. The next book, and all of the books are linked down in the description below, so you can grab them all down there. So the next book is Steal Like an Artist. Now, some of you, this one's a bit more popular, so some of you might know it already. It's by Austin Kleon. It's a whole series of books, Steal Like an Artist, Show Your Work, and Keep Going. And together they make a really good sort of manual for how to live a creative life. And these books are really fun to read. They only take probably like half an hour. I countlessly reread them. I've read them just like on a single streetcar ride. They're illustrated in a fun way. And just Austin's way of thinking is so interesting and kind of sideways to how a lot of people think about their life and their career. So you'll find a lot of great nuggets in this book. Check it out. That's Steal Like an Artist. Then the next one is Breaking the Time Barrier. Now, this is actually a free ebook from the makers of FreshBooks. We're not affiliated in any way. We use FreshBooks, but we pay for it. But a lot of people ask us about pricing. That's probably the number one question freelancers send us is, how do I price my work? Is this a good price? Am I underpricing, overpricing? And Breaking the Time Barrier is all about pricing. Now, a lot of people start, when they start freelancing, they use this formula of how much money you want to make a year divided by the number of hours you can work, and that's your hourly rate. And this is just a ridiculous way to figure out your pricing by just basically selling off chunks of your time endlessly. A much better way is pricing by value, and this is what this book is all about. It's a really simple read and also doesn't take very long, but it's a great illustration of value-based pricing that I think every single freelancer needs to read. This has changed our business more than anything, just knowing how to price and just like how you position it in your mind is so important to give you the confidence to get those larger budgets and put together larger estimates. So I highly recommend you go download Breaking the Time Barrier by FreshBooks. I think it's by the founder of FreshBooks actually. So it's a free ebook, check it out down in the description below. The next one is Atomic Habits. Now I mentioned this in our things I changed or whatever video last year, and you can check it out right here. But this book has been paying off so much for me. It's all about a systemic approach to make and break habits. And more than any of the other books on this list, it gives you a very concrete way. It's like a methodology rather than just like a theory. So some of the habits that I've developed as a result of reading this book have been finally sticking to a running habit and kind of like amping it up. You know, I've been doing meditation more consistently than I ever have. Things like reading and sleeping consistently. It basically gives you this like epic toolkit to mess with your own life and kind of design the life that you want, rather than being at the whims of maybe the habits a social media company wants you to have, or a phone company wants you to have, or some advertisers want you to have. We all have good and bad habits, whether we know it or not. And this book really teaches you to be mindful of them and really take control and advantage of them for your own benefit. So highly, highly recommend reading Atomic Habits. And then the final book is called Small Giants. For me, when we were launching Workerbee, we really wanted to sort of have a different company philosophy than just like, let's grow this into a giant agency and make us as big as possible, as fast as possible. And Small Giants really set the direction for how our business runs. And at its core, it's about choosing a purpose rather than chasing a profit. And that might seem like not a big distinction, and inevitably choosing the right purpose will lead to a profit. But I think too many companies are short-sighted and make decisions that trip them up over the long term in pursuit of a quick buck. And this book really kind of shows you a ton of case studies of companies that have grown immensely but have chosen to remain small or to grow very slowly, so that they can keep their company culture or keep a kind of lifestyle they wanted for their employees and just have a more pleasant day-to-day work environment. And I think that's for me what it's all about, like what your day-to-day life is like. You know, we live in the everyday. So it doesn't make sense to chase after a thing that'll give you like one quick high when you have to slog through it every day to get there. So I think by building healthier companies and businesses, it will really benefit a lot of people to have better lives in general, since we spend so much of our time at work. So I really, really highly recommend reading Small Giants. It's a fantastic, inspiring book and will give you a lot to think about in terms of how you run your business and the businesses you work with as well. So just to go over them again, those books are Stumbling on Happiness, Steal Like an Artist, Breaking the Time Barrier, Atomic Habits, and Small Giants. And check them out in the link below. And please, 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 I need to fill up my Audible queue. So please do me a favor and drop me one comment of just one book that's really impacted you. It could be fiction, nonfiction, it could be a very heady book or a very simple book, a free ebook even. I'd love to hear what you've been working on, what's made an impact on your life. It's a little bit selfish, but I want to read better books in the next year, and I always need another one. So thank you very much for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, what are you doing? This is your chance. Hit subscribe, hit that notification bell. We're releasing videos every week. And if you're a creative freelancer that wants to grow this year, this is the channel for you. All right. Thanks a lot for watching. I really appreciate you. This is Eugene from Workerbee Supply. See you next time.